Welcome to Podula Rasa. I'm David Blank.
And I'm Jim Esch.
This is a podcast about finding something in nothing.
Welcome to Podula Rasa. You're listening to show number 16, the Thom Williams Experience, fragment 9. On this show, Dave had a great interview with artist Jon-Michael Frank, who had Thom Williams as a high school creative writing teacher. They get into all kinds of fascinating topics. I think you're going to love this interview. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Dave.
Actually, one thing I'm curious about is what is your recollection of how you and Thom met?
Yeah, that's kind of a good story. So I transferred to Marple, I think, my junior year, I think, of high school. And I met him, I guess he had like cafeteria duty or something. I was pretty wild for that school. This was like heyday of goth. I was wearing makeup. It's pretty intense for Marple. There wasn't really anyone else like me then. And I guess I submitted a haiku, or what I thought was haiku, to the literary paper at some point. And I guess he read them, but he stopped me in the cafeteria and was like, I read your haiku and, they're pretty good, but you need guidance. And I was pretty irate about that, to be honest with you. The rebellious teen in me was like, what the fuck do you know? Like, I don't need any guidance. So I was pretty resistant to that, but of course, he was right. Yeah, that was sort of the approach. And I don't know, maybe he sensed that I sort of respond to more of a challenging and interesting approach. But I think Tom's heart has kind of a different set of eyes that most of us, I think, have closed, unfortunately. So I think he just knew,
Interesting. So that must have been about 2000?
Yeah, that was about 2000. And then I took a creative writing class with him, and our relationship, which I'm sure most people feel, was just very natural and organic. And intellectually, we were pretty glued in almost immediately. And he was also like the first adult in my life. I think I was pretty apprehensive or resistant to adults since I was so different. And I don't know, most of my conversations with adults were sort of like getting through the gates of like my appearance or my personality. And it took so long to like actually have a real conversation with adults that most of my relationships just never really got anywhere. Whereas with him, I remember him saying one time to me, like, I was complaining about school and he was like, look, like, this place is a prison. You're in prison. I'm in prison. We all like are trying to get out of here. And like, it was just like what I needed to hear, obviously. But he was like, he was an adult that didn't talk to you like with a hierarchy embedded in the conversation.
Right.
And it was so freeing just to be able to have a real conversation.
Yeah. He also had a very good way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Which certainly helps if you're a teenager searching for some answers, which is most of us at that time.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I think in just all of life, I think at least my relationship with Thom, I don't know, I sort of always have a teenage heart. I think that's just sort of my path in life.
Right.
And I think most people sort of, they make their heart into an adult, and it really drains the color out of life. I think we're kind of trained that way or taught that way. And, I think Thom was pivotal as a teen, but, also as an adult. And I do feel like his passing and I know people reached out to me a bit after that. And I think I told you in the email, we did a haiku journal together, and I had people reach out wanting to get involved in that. And I think when people heard about that, their teenage heart awakened, or their true heart awakened, and they were like, oh shit, like, I've been neglecting this. And this was a person who I connected this real person in my real heart with. And, life and jobs and capitalism gets in the way of that. And Thom just machetes all that jungle out, and you see very clearly. And people like that are very powerful, and people like that I think we're afraid of a lot of them too.
Yeah, I really like how you put that, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that even though it's almost 10 years since he's gone,
Yeah,
he's still doing it just by
of
the
course.
lessons that he showed us in our time when we were with him.
Yeah, he highlights what's important. And I wish I had the powers that he did. I taught high school for a year as well, and I don't know what I did, but I didn't make anywhere near as much of an impact as he did. Yeah, he just has this specific way of sort of opening you up to your real self. I think someone else in one of the podcasts said that, and I don't really know how he did that, to be honest.
Well, he was very present in the moment and very real, and he was never pretentious, at least not that I ever remember.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Present. Wow. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
I draw off that a lot personally, and I think
Being
that
present.
yes, and since we've started doing this podcast and talking with people like yourself and
Yeah.
many others, it's reinforcing, and it's allowed me. We're all on our own journey, right? But it's allowed me to really see some major changes within myself. And I'm 56 years old. You think I wouldn't be still changing, but I really resonate with what you said about a teenage heart. And I think maybe we all have that.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. hmm And I think sort of the reality and truth is that a lot of your experiences in life and through institutions, through people, are trying to tell you that you don't have a teenage heart, or you shouldn't, or the expression of emotion culturally, publicly. I think now it's starting to change, but I think, and I feel like Thom would agree, that the more people are trying to tell you you don't have something you do, the more true it really is. Yes. And
Right.
the more they have it. And, you get into the real world, especially at a high school, and you realize very quickly people are afraid of that true heart and that feeling. And Thom had that warmth because, it wasn't afraid. He allowed you he opened the gate and let the dog out of the yard. And he was like, look what your heart can do. Like, it can go here, it can eat this, it can do that, it can play with this. Yeah. And that's like, those are the moments that actually matter in life. And they make permanent changes. And I agree with what you said. I personally need to really work on being present. But I think sort of sitting with that true heart is really harnessing being in the present, because being in the present requires you to be your true self and requires you to feel however you feel. And most of life, you can't do that.
Right. It's a challenge for sure. And it's a challenge to encourage others to do it as well. And maybe in some way, that's kind of it's one of the hopefully positive aspects of what we're doing here, what we're participating in. When 9/11 happened,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you recall what it was like for you and how he may have played into that, what was going on during that event?
2001, right?
Yep.
I do know sort of a lot of conversations, Tom. I mean, Tom and I really related to sort of this expectation. I wouldn't say of the worst, but not surprised by things like that. And I think, you know, if you watch that video of him, Words to Live By, when they're talking about, you know, when your mother died, she might actually have died when I was in school. I don't remember, but something about, he said, you know, when your mother died, did the things you know help you? And he said, yeah, of course. And so I think like sort of John Lennon's death on 9/11, it's sort of this thing where it's like, he'd always talk to me, like, I forget what the quote was, but something about, you know, you want to hear what the history of man is man kills man. It's just 3 words. And so, you know, walking around with those ideas, I think that was my mind state then in high school, and it is still now. And I think that, you know, that's sort of the drive that pulled him to haiku, and sort of looking at the ephemerality of everything, and sort of getting to, once again, the true heart of nature, the true heart light itself. It doesn't, I don't know how much it does well to be super surprised by that stuff.
No, it gives these, you get lulled into a sense of complacency, and then it happens again.
Yeah, right. And I think, you know, I'm no master on the present, but I think being in the present has something to do with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you still write haiku now that you're?
You know, I don't remember the last time I wrote haiku. I should be writing haiku, I can tell you that. Yeah, I think in some ways, I mean, I'm an artist now, and
Okay.
a lot of my work is kind of writing based, and haiku has influenced it dramatically, for sure. I finished a graphic novel last year where I quote a lot of basho and a lot of haiku.
Okay.
And I have a lot of Thom's haiku books, actually, that I revisit all the time, and they're dog-eared by him, and you know, I can kind of helps me see through his eyes, which is really important. And you know, and the haiku thing is really big, and it made sense to me immediately. I have another friend, Emily Caponnet, I went to high school with, and we share that similar thing. When you walked in that class and he first taught you a haiku or whatever, you know, whatever random "I go, you stay 2 autumns" or whatever random fleeting thought, like, I don't know, that made sense to me immediately, and even to this day. So yeah, we definitely had a haiku bond. It wasn't our whole whatever, but yeah, I should be writing more, I can tell you that.
Well, maybe this isn't related, but in terms of being present, the older that I get, the less I worry about being dead, because I know that I'm going to be dead for a lot longer than I was alive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't really worry about that too much either. And
well, when I was younger, I did. I used to worry a lot about missing out. Even when I was, I mean, I would be present in a moment worrying about what I was missing, if that makes sense. And
yeah, so what do you mean by missing out? Are you just kind of talking about in general, or are you talking about missing out as in death, or are you talking about like missing some party you thought, you know, something?
Oh no, just missing some sort of meaning.
I
Um,
think.
for example, I would go on a vacation with my family and like for a week
Right.
somewhere, and I'd think, be Monday, and I think, oh, okay, I've got 5 more days, and then I think,
Yeah.
oh no, I missed it. I lost that last day, and then it would be Tuesday,
Yeah.
and it would just build to the last day
Yeah.
when I think everything I'd missed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Crazy.
horrible. And,
Yes.
I think some of it is, it's not our fault. I mean, it's, when you're working 40 plus hours a week and doing I mean, that fear is real because those vacations are rare and you
Yeah.
want to have this,
Yep.
you want to have this connection with you and yourself. And once again, that true heart or whatever, this enjoyment of life. And when it's barricaded and walled between like leaving work and having to go back to work, it's very hard to be present in that. And I do art for full time now, and I can tell you it's a lot easier to be present now.
It
It's a
helps when you
lot
like what you
easier
do. Yes.
to look at the sky and see it as the sky or see it as something else or see it as whatever. But yeah, that's a very dangerous, I think, cultural and economic pressure that really breaks my heart. I think that's the thing that binds a lot of people. Once again, I think I said to Thom, is it's that reality. There's these moments in life where you see sort of how nonsensical life is and sort of how sad a lot of humans have, what they've done and the pressures they put on other people. And, when it comes down to it, at the end, you're like thinking back and those moments with Thom or people you love or those moments of the sky and etc. Those are the big ones, and we don't have enough of them, and it sucks.
I agree. I totally agree. But that's why we're doing this. It's a high point. My
Yeah.
dad used to call them islands. You just going from island to island.
I like that.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like the island is being
The high points in life.
I see. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty skeptical of sort of this cultural definition of happiness. It's pretty jarring and doesn't really make a lot of sense for a lot of people, and it sort of feels like this, almost like a status or a car. It's like you're working up and you buy it, and you're supposed to feel really good all the time. And happiness to me isn't, those peaks are. That's not. I don't know. That's not really true joy to me.
I agree. I think if you can sell it, it's not real.
Yeah, that's a Thom thought right there. That's a big one. Yeah.
Well,
You're
you
getting
mentioned
big thoughts now.
culturally, you think about all the things that they tell you, whoever they is, that you should do in your life and how you succeed. And it's like he who dies with the most wins, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's that at all.
No, it's not. I think we all know that it's not. It's just hard. It's hard to implement that stuff. And Thom would say to me, and I remember specifically in his basement, he said to me one time, he's talking about how I remind him of John Lennon or something. I don't know, something. And he said something to me, like, just kind of stopped and was like, "You're a romantic. You're an idealist. You gotta stop with that stuff. That's gonna bring you down." Like,
Really?
yeah. Oh yeah. And he was to an extent too, but no, I know what he means, and it's true. It's that idea that we've got to march through life with our hearts and constantly becoming who we are and figuring out who we are. I think that's, I was doing that as a teenager. I'm 36 now, and I still feel kind of far from that, really kind of doing the work. And I spent a lot of time with myself figuring out who I am, but it just feels like there's always more work to do.
Well, we're always becoming. Nothing changes.
Right.
I mean, everything changes all the time. So you have to constantly be checking in and saying, okay, am I steering correctly? Like, am I doing this right?
Yeah. I read this. I'm reading this book on mushrooms right now, and they're talking about biologically. I'm going to mess up this thought, but it's something about how people are just a current state of this amalgam of cells and organs and et cetera. And we think of the concept of life as this constant sort of this static person that expands over 100 years or whatever. And that ties in very much biologically and scientifically where you're talking about be here now and being the present, is that who you are right now isn't any you haven't been before, even molecular.
Right.
And all of life is pointing to that, cutting through, the crap and binary thinking to be here and be present in just the moment mattering and who you are at that moment. I think that's part of what Thom was saying with saying you got to be careful being romantic because the world's going to mess you up with that stuff. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think in some ways the romantic becomes very concentrated on the external and being upset about the world isn't this and the world isn't that. And I think that what we need to be romantic about is the internal.
I agree.
And I think that's what he was saying is, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned mushrooms, and are you aware that fungi actually participate in chemical communication between trees?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm reading about.
Oh, really?
Symbiotic relationships, and
it's amazing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's my uncle recommended this book, and it's astounding to me that it just highlights more. So they're talking about mycelia and about how people can't really label it or figure it out because it's many different things. The ends of the mycelia, I think, are called a hypha or something, and so they're all individuals, but at the same time, it's one organism. So There's this battle going back and forth whether it's
is it alive?
Well, that and separate entities, or is it one thing?
Right.
And you can look at all religions and philosophies and this idea. It's amazing how we've, in some ways, thinkers have figured this out, that the idea that everything's connected, that everything is an ecology, and especially in the Western world, it's this notion of the rugged individual,
right,
which is just obscene. And so we're looking at the mushrooms and fungi and how it grows, and scientists are raised with these binary thoughts of being like, oh, well, it can't this, and it's like, it's crazy. And once again, it goes to the present of connected to everything. And
well, mankind has very successfully, in my view, separated themselves from everything and made ourselves very.
That's a big thought. Yeah.
Just from the standpoint of, we're separate from animals. Like, we're not animals.
Right.
Right. We don't evolve. We're done. We're perfect, and everything else is just nature, and we're not really in it. I think a lot of people think that.
It's sad. It's sad because we feel disconnected is what
right.
it is. It's we're trying to mirror the world with how we feel, and how we feel is wrong.
I agree with you.
We feel separate, but we're not separate. And it's like, you're in a relationship with someone, you get along and it's fine, and you feel alone, and it's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And that's this romanticized notion of sort of this eternal wholeness with another person. I don't know, if having to feel connected all the time and perfecting that connection or something. And it's very disruptive. I think it's like success driven or something of and once again, not being present. I think it's true.
Yeah. Before I forget, what is the name of the book that you're reading?
Entangled Life.
I want to check it out. Well, I wanted to mention, if you haven't, there's a podcast, which is, it's called From Tree to Shining Tree. And that's where I first learned about the symbiotic relationship and the atom economy that goes on between trees and fungi. And they found that trees actually communicate through fungi, like
Yep.
from over very long distances.
Yep.
Incredible
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, The Hidden Life of Trees is another book that also, it's where I learned about it. And
Okay.
this book about fungi is talking about even in plants, like there's fungi, like basically that life couldn't exist without fungi is kind of what it's coming down to. And even in plants and how they're getting nutrients is through fungi. Like even, a houseplant or whatever, like there is no such thing as independence. And anyone who reads into ecology and nature, it just breaks, like all the human ideas break apart so hard and so fast with how life works. And these are living creatures that exist through symbiosis and connection and ecology. And the mushroom book talks about, you're talking about a plant that just grows straight up. This is a living creature that can't move. Animals move, they go to food, they leave danger. This is a living creature that cannot move and still thrives because it's figured out how to have these symbiotic relationships. And imagine there's some quote about, I forget who said it, but about the problem with man is he like can't sit in a room or something and just chill out or something. And you look at plants and like that's what they're doing. They're sitting in one place. Could you imagine sitting in one place? And we'd lose our minds.
Right.
Unless you're meditating.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've often thought about that and wondering if there is a consciousness with plants. I mean, there must be something. It's got to be very different
I think so,
from ours. But then again, like we exist or actually all animals exist because of our mitochondria, which was a separate creature before it got absorbed into like the first cell, to power, to serve as the power plant. Like that was really one of the first critical symbiotic relationships that makes us possible.
Mm-hmm.
So do you play music?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That's sort of I'm a huge music fan and appreciator, but I don't play. So that's one relationship with Thom I did not have.
Okay. But he must have turned you on to some music at some point.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Dylan, he slammed
Right.
Dylan's song lyric book on my desk when I was in high school. And he recommended me Live in '66, which I bought, which now that I know Dylan really well, I feel like that was a little bit of a wild first dip into. I would have recommended something else to somebody else, but I think he kind of ushered me towards Dylan, and I don't know, Van Morrison maybe through osmosis, through friends. I think I know he didn't like Leonard Cohen, which is pretty wild to me.
Really?
But Margaret does, yeah, his wife.
What didn't he like about him?
Leonard Cohen, I don't remember. I remember mentioning, it's funny to me because so he slammed that Dylan book on my desk in high school, and then sort of towards the end of his life, I was going over his house once a week or something and hanging out, and I burned him a CD of Dylan's. It's called Telltale Signs. I think it's like a box set of basically like his '80s kind of work, or '80s and '90s kind of stripped down. And I ended up burning CD and leaving it in the mailbox. And we talked about Dylan, and it felt really good to have that kind of like cyclical thing where it's like you're turning me on to Dylan, and then now I'm giving you some Dylan later in life. but yeah, I remember mentioning Leonard Cohen, and I don't know, he was kind of, I don't know. I don't remember. He just couldn't connect in some way, which yeah, it's very weird. That really surprises me.
Interesting. Interesting. So you maintained a relationship with him from when you met him through to the end of his life.
Um, yeah, I think so, off and on. That's kind of my MO in life. I don't. Uh, I think I have like an attachment thing. I know that the sort of Buddhist idea and Eastern ideas is to relinquish these attachments, but I'm kind of an attachment person. Yeah, I think off and on, and yeah, towards the end, it was much more present, much more active. He, I forget how I bumped into him or something, but he said to me like, "You should come over and talk sometime," and that just lit my world up, because it felt, I don't know, Thom was very approachable and warm.
Right.
But I think this is probably me and sort of my experience with people in general. I did always feel like there was sort of this gap or wall between us that I couldn't really quite penetrate. And so when he invited me over, that felt really good. I felt really valued. And I forget, we just had a conversation, and he was like, I love having conversations like that, and we should do that. And in my experience of life, no one does that, like,
right.
And that's what I love, is those deep conversations. I mean, that's what makes me tick every day.
Yeah.
And then so we just kind of would sit and just talk for hours, and then we started the haiku journal past the last year of his life, maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And I think I told you in the email that the last I spoke to him, and it was a few days, I think, before he died. Maybe it was a week time. I don't remember, but I called. I don't remember. Somehow I got in touch with him, and he said something to me. Because I asked him, I was like, "I'm sorry if this is like inappropriate," and he said something to me that really made me feel good about, like, I was one of the few people he wanted to talk to, and that just my heart, it just was a real killer even now. And like I emailed to you, one of the last things I remember him saying is that I'm still learning so much. Days away from his death, is still learning so much. That's it. that's Thom, and that's his humility, and that's where that symbiotic relationship he has, his mushroom and tree relationship with people. And I don't think I do this, but that's what I think you understand when you're a teenager talking to him, is he's learning from you and you're learning from him, and that's parity. There's an equal relationship there. And in high school, I was editing his haikus with him. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do that with a high schooler, but I don't know. But also, I think he knows, and I think I knew that, like I said, I think we had a connection and understood. And those connections with people, they're just so important, and you got to trust those, and he trusted those,
Yeah, that's amazing. That's quite an amazing story. That's great. I can see how that would really influence you too, just as a human being.
Yeah. Which part? All of it, or?
well, the fact that he would let you, or encourage you to edit his work.
Oh my God, I think about it now, and I'm so grateful. It's like I was in high school, and he was encouraging me to send haiku to journals to get published. I was getting haiku published in high school.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know anything about that stuff. I didn't come from a family like that. Like, I had that connection, and to be a part of that world and that art world, and be recognized, and to feel, have a confidence to I mean, it just, some of that's superficial, obviously, like getting stuff published, but you need to start on that stuff. And that's people don't do that. That's indispensable. That's a huge heart. And Without that, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be pursuing creative acts like I am today and became an artist if I didn't have those experiences. You realize that with all the things that really touch you and matter in life, you revisit Winnie the Pooh as a 60-year-old, and it's blowing your mind like it did as a kid, and in the same way in some ways, and the stuff that matters, I think it never just doesn't change, and that's kind of why I talk about this teenage heart. It's like, I don't know, people talk about like phases when you're younger and this and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. And I think that's the thing that I connected with Thom is none of that stuff has gone away with me. I mean, it's all still there. Like, we monitor it differently, but I don't know. I just don't. I'm pretty skeptical of change in some ways. I mean, obviously I've changed, of course, but the internal, that's the holy grail. That's the precious metal. You don't need to improve the holy grail.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
It's just, seeing it for what it is and being in touch with it.
I just opened up a document of the 3 pages of haiku that Margaret sent me after we first chatted. And here's one that was around when you were first knowing him. Dark blue butterfly blending quietly into the gathering storm. That's from 2001.
That's a good one.
And then I also wanted to mention one that she sent me a copy of Alive Beyond Blue.
Yep, I have that, yeah.
And also his collected poems, which I've just been, I mean, it's almost too much because I want to read them all and I can't absorb it all. But she actually suggested that I read Afterthoughts of God and Absentia, which is it's on page 47 of Alive Beyond Blue. And it seems like to me like it ends with a haiku. I mean, it's a poem, but the last 3 lines, although probably not the right haiku form, just sound like a haiku to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he's talking about God, and then at the end he says, "But look closely in the unexpected cool shade. There are wild raspberries fallen beneath the tiger lilies." And it's like as we were just talking about, and as you mentioned, that's what's real. It had nothing to do with.
Yeah, it gives me chills.
Yeah,
haiku gives me chills. It's a real punch in the face. Haiku. It's like, what are you doing? Look, what are you doing? It's a punch in the face, and that's terrific. Yeah, I mean, unexpected. That word's the big one, because that's the problem, is unexpected, and we're expecting the wrong things. And then
I would say that I think he would say it's the problem and the answer.
The unexpected?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right. But that seeing those raspberries are in the shade, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the big one. Yeah. I mean, that's God. That's God coming through for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, it just like, and I've read it a few times over the last couple of days since I got it, but it's like, it's just about being present. That's all.
Alive beyond blue. Is it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in the title, think
Yeah.
about that. I mean, this is a podcast talking about someone who's passed away.
Right.
Named his book "Alive Beyond Blue." I
Yep.
mean, we're meeting those words. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think that's absolutely true. He's, it's the idea of memories being blessings, and I think he's present here. In my
Mhm.
head, it's like he's right here
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah. I feel similar, but what I wouldn't give for an hour conversation, I can tell
Oh
you
yeah.
that.
Are there any other stories that you can think of that you'd want to share, or has
uh, I mean, I've got a million. I'm sure I've got a ton, but no. I mean, yeah. I'm grateful and appreciate to talk with someone about Thom. I have some people in my life. I have maybe a friend or two from high school to talk about Thom with, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that's kind of inexpressible, and um, I think that's kind of the thing about memories. It's like I want to talk about them, but when I do, it doesn't ever quite seem like it honors the feeling and stuff. And I think that's just kind of life. But that being said, it feels really good, and you know, when I talk with Margaret, um, I also get that that sense and that connection, and not to make a million um, fungi references, but in the book they also talk about this idea, of the fruit and the spores and how they're spread, and that mushrooms are just the fruit, and spreading the spores to live, to keep living, and to diversify in different places, and sort of memories and connections. And Thom has that effect. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Jon-Michael, it was really nice to meet you. And
Yeah, same with you.
thank you so much for your time. I'll look forward to talking with you again.
Yeah, let me know. Thanks again. I really loved talking to you as well.
Thank you, Jon-Michael Frank, for an amazing interview. I recommend all our listeners check out Jon-Michael's website. Go to Michael, FRANK.com. That's JonMichaelFrank.com. You can check out his art, see his publications, his graphic novel. He's got lots of amazing, fun stuff, and I really recommend you check out his Instagram page too. If you're new to the podcast, go to pagilarasa.com and you can catch up on all our previous episodes. All the podcasts are hosted at anchor.fm, and we encourage you to subscribe. If you have some feedback, send us an email, pagilarasa@gmail.com. Until next time, hope everybody's well, stay safe, and enjoy your holiday season.